A man who should have disappeared, Daniel Cross lived where maps stopped caring. A small coastal town. No headlines, no history. People there didn't ask questions. They respected silence. Daniel fit in because he didn't speak unless necessary, and when he did, it was never about the past. He fixed boats. Drank coffee alone. Watched the sea like it might explain something one day. It never did. 3 years after Emma, Daniel still woke before dawn, not from nightmares anymore, but from the absence of them. That was worse. The war inside him had gone quiet, too quiet. On the wall of his small rented room hung nothing. No photos, no medals, no letters, only memory. The girl at the dock, she was new, late 20s, dark hair tied back, a notebook in her hand. She watched Daniel longer than people usually did. "You're not from here," she said finally. Neither was he. "Neither are you," Daniel replied. She smiled. "Clara Bennett, investigative journalist." Daniel's body reacted before his mind did. "Journalist, of course. The name that still cut. I'm not here for you," Clara said calmly. "I'm here because people keep disappearing and your name keeps showing up in places it shouldn't." Daniel looked at the sea. "I don't use that name anymore." She hesitated. "What about Emma Hale? That did it." Daniel turned, slow, dangerous. "Leave," he said. Clara didn't. "She saved lives," Clara continued, "and someone made sure her story never finished." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Some stories end for a reason." Clara shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Some stories end because they're too dangerous to finish. The choice returns." That night Daniel sat alone in his room. The sea was loud, too loud. A folded piece of paper lay on the table, Clara's card. On the back, a sentence written by hand. "If you disappear again, they win." Daniel closed his eyes. He had survived by becoming invisible. But invisibility had a cost. Fire end of episode 1, cliffhanger at dawn. Daniel found his boat vandalized. A symbol carved into the wood, one he hadn't seen in years, one that meant only one thing: someone had found him. And this time, they weren't coming for the truth. They were coming for him. She didn't come looking for him by accident. Daniel didn't repair the boat. He left it exactly as it was. The carved symbol caught the morning light like an accusation. Someone wanted him to see it. Someone wanted him awake. Clara's second question. Clara found him where everyone eventually did, by the sea. "You didn't leave," she said. Daniel didn't look at her. "You didn't either." She sat on a rock at a careful distance. "That symbol," she said, "it's not random." Daniel's jaw tightened. "No," he replied, "it's a warning." What Clara really knew. Clara opened her notebook. Inside weren't questions. There were files, photos Daniel had never seen published, names that were supposed to be sealed, dates that lined up too perfectly. "You didn't disappear," Clara said quietly. "You were allowed to fade." Daniel finally turned. "That wasn't a favor." "No," she agreed. "It was containment." The lie inside the truth. Clara admitted it then. She hadn't come chasing a story. She had been sent a package, no return address, no explanation inside it. Documents connected to ASHLINE, and one handwritten note: "If he's still alive, he's the only one who can finish this." Daniel felt the familiar pressure behind his eyes. "Finish what?" Clara swallowed. "The part that was never exposed. A new threat." That night the town lost power. Not an outage, a blackout. Daniel felt it instantly, the old instinct snapping awake. "Stay here," he told Clara. She didn't listen. They heard footsteps near the docks. Soft, professional, not thieves, hunters. The test, a figure moved between boats. Daniel stepped forward into the dark. "You picked the wrong ghost," he said. The figure froze, then ran. Daniel didn't chase. He didn't need to, because seconds later his phone buzzed. A message, no sender. "You were supposed to stay gone." Clara's fear. Clara's hands were shaking now. They know you're here, she said. Daniel nodded. They always did. He looked at her, really looked. You said you were a journalist, he said. Who else are you? Clara met his eyes. I used to work for an oversight committee, she said. One that never had teeth. Daniel exhaled slowly. So they shut you down. They buried my work, she said, and killed 2 people who helped me. Silence stretched between them. The decision tightens. Daniel walked back to his room, pulled open the floorboard he hadn't touched in years. Inside, a burner phone. An old access key and a name written on folded paper. He handed the paper to Clara. If you're lying, he said, I won't hesitate. Clara read the name. Her face went pale. That man is dead, she whispered. Daniel shook his head. Not yet. Fire end of episode 2, cliffhanger. As night fell, Daniel received one last message, this time with coordinates, and one sentence, come alone or she becomes collateral. Daniel looked at Clara. For the first time, he didn't know if he was protecting her or walking her straight into the war he never finished. Come alone was the first lie. Daniel didn't tell Clara where he was going. That was the first mistake. Or maybe the last smart decision he had left. The coordinates, the place was familiar in the wrong way. An old lighthouse road, unused, broken, leading nowhere except cliffs and water. Daniel remembered training exercises like this, places chosen not for access but for control. He arrived just before midnight. Wind, waves, no lights. Then a silhouette stepped forward, not armed, smiling. The man who was supposed to be dead, still following orders. Daniel. The man said. Daniel froze. The voice hadn't changed. The face had, older, sharper, still unmistakable. Ethan Cole. The name Daniel had given Clara, the man who taught counterintelligence before Marcus ever did. The man officially listed as killed in action. You're alive, Daniel said. Ethan shrugged. Dead is useful. The truth carefully shaped. You leaked ASHLINE, Ethan said calmly. And you think that ended it? Daniel didn't answer. You don't destroy systems, Ethan continued. You inherit them. Daniel felt the weight of those words. What do you want? Ethan smiled. To see if you're still useful. The test revealed. Ethan gestured toward the dark. Clara Bennett, he said, was never collateral. Daniel's chest tightened. She was bait, Ethan went on, a test. For you, Daniel stepped forward. If she's hurt. She isn't, Ethan interrupted. Not yet. The choice framed as mercy. Ethan handed Daniel a phone. On the screen, a live feed. Clara bound, alive, shaken. She's smart, Ethan said. She followed you anyway. Daniel's fists clenched. You want me, he said, so take me. Ethan shook his head. I want what you represent, he said, a clean ending. The offer. Ethan leaned closer. You disappear again, he said. No leaks, no journalists, no ghosts. And Clara. She forgets your name, Ethan replied. Lives. Daniel's mind raced. Emma's letter echoed in his head. Some wars end when someone refuses to disappear. Daniel's answer. Daniel dropped the phone into the water. It vanished instantly. Ethan's smile faded. You didn't even ask where she is. Daniel met his eyes. Because if she's still breathing, he said, I already chose. The consequence. Lights snapped on around the cliff road, not soldiers, cameras. Then let the world see, Ethan said coldly. Daniel felt it then. This wasn't an execution, it was a public framing. Fire end of episode 3, cliffhanger. As sirens rose in the distance, Ethan stepped back into the dark. You were right about one thing, he said. Come alone was a lie. Daniel stood under the lights, surrounded by cameras, realizing too late, this time disappearing wasn't an option. And being seen might be deadlier. They didn't arrest him, they introduced him. Daniel expected handcuffs. He got microphones. Cameras circled him like predators that didn't need to bite because the story had already been written. Daniel Cross, a reporter said, breathless. Former military operative linked to multiple classified leaks. Do you deny the accusations? Daniel said nothing. Silence could still be misquoted. The narrative drops by morning. The footage was everywhere. Not raw, not real. Edited. Daniel was framed as unstable, a disgruntled veteran. A man haunted by delusions of conspiracies that no longer existed. ASHLINE was mentioned, briefly, then dismissed. Unverified, debunked, emotionally compromised source. Emma's name wasn't spoken. That was intentional. Clara's location, Daniel didn't know where Clara was, but someone wanted him to know she was alive. A message arrived on a public forum, buried inside a comment thread. She's watching you become a monster. Daniel closed his eyes. This wasn't about jail. It was about credibility. If he broke now, the truth would die with him. Ethan's second lesson. Ethan appeared that evening, not in person, but on a private stream sent only to Daniel. You see, Ethan said calmly, no bullets, no blood. He gestured to the screen showing Daniel's own face replayed again and again. This is how modern wars end, Ethan continued. Not with silence. With noise, Daniel spoke for the first time. You're afraid. Ethan smiled. Of what? Of witnesses, Daniel replied, not evidence, people. The trap tightens that night. A warrant was issued, not for arrest, for psychiatric evaluation. Daniel read the words twice, involuntary, indefinite. That's how they erase me, he whispered. No prison, no trial, just a diagnosis. Clara breaks silence. The feed hit social media at 2:14 a.m. Unverified, unstable, perfect. Clara's face appeared on screen, bruised, exhausted, alive. If anything happens to Daniel Cross, she said, it won't be justice. It will be containment. The video cut mid-sentence, but it was enough. The crowd splits, the internet fractured. Some called Daniel a criminal, others called him a symbol. The system hated symbols. They couldn't be jailed cleanly. Fire end of episode 4, cliffhanger. Daniel stood alone in his room as footsteps approached from the hallway. Not soldiers, doctors, white coats, clipboards. The knock came polite this time. Mr. Cross, a voice said calmly, we're here to help. Daniel looked at the camera he had secretly activated and smiled for the first time in years, because now they were walking into his narrative. They tried to treat the truth. The room was white, not clean, controlled. Daniel noticed it immediately. No sharp corners, no mirrors, no clocks. Time was the first thing they planned to take. A woman in a white coat sat across from him, hands folded, voice gentle. Daniel, she said, we're here to help you rest. Daniel smiled faintly. That's never been true when people say it like that. The diagnosis before the question, she didn't ask about ASHLINE. She asked about Emma. How long have you been seeing her? The doctor said softly. Daniel's chest tightened. Seeing? He repeated. Yes, she said calmly. In your thoughts, in your memories. Daniel understood. They weren't testing his sanity. They were writing it. Gaslight. They showed him footage, him speaking, him shouting, him silent, all edited. You see, the doctor said, this is classic trauma projection. Daniel leaned back. You cut the parts where I tell the truth, he said. She smiled sympathetically. That's what you believe, medication, a paper cup. 2 pills, just to help you sleep, she said. Daniel didn't take them. Do you know what happens to soldiers who sleep too long? He asked. She didn't answer. Inside the system across the city, Clara sat in a different kind of white room. No doctors. Just men who didn't blink. They slid a document in front of her, recantation statement. If you sign, one said, Daniel becomes a tragic case, not a threat. Clara's hands shook. And if I do? The man leaned closer. Then he becomes contagious. The line they missed back in his room. Daniel stared at the camera lens hidden in the air vent. Still streaming, still live. They thought he didn't know. That was their mistake. He spoke softly. "If you're watching," he said, "notice how they never ask what happened." Orderlies entered. Firm, silent, one reached for Daniel's arm. Daniel didn't resist. He looked straight ahead and said one last thing: "You don't cure witnesses, you erase them." Clara's choice. Clara pushed the document back. "I won't sign," she said. The man sighed. "Then this ends badly." Clara met his eyes. "It already did," she said. "You just don't know it yet." Fire end of episode 5, cliffhanger. Daniel lay restrained, ceiling lights blurring above him. A syringe hovered, and through the haze he heard the doctor say, "This will help you forget." Daniel whispered, so quietly only the camera could hear. "Good, because the world already remembers." The feed didn't cut, and somewhere outside the room people were finally watching. You can't erase what people witness. The syringe never touched his skin. That was the first crack in their certainty. The room that wasn't silent anymore. The feed didn't stop. Someone outside the system, someone patient, had mirrored it. By the time the doctor realized, tens of thousands were watching. Not live TV, not official news, something worse. Raw, the doctor's hands shake. "We're done," she said sharply. "Shut it down." The order didn't matter. Comments flooded in. Clips spread. Faces froze mid-frame. The world saw what treatment looked like when truth was inconvenient. Daniel's restraints were loosened, not out of mercy, but panic. For the first time since the lighthouse, the system hesitated. Clara's final move. Clara didn't wait. She released everything. Not as a dump, as a story, names connected to outcomes, orders to consequences, silence to death. She didn't accuse, she documented. And documentation is patient. Ethan speaks one last time. Ethan appeared in Daniel's room as the facility emptied. No guards. No cameras, just two men and a truth that had outgrown them both. "You won't win," Ethan said calmly. "You'll become unusable." Daniel sat up slowly. "Then the system loses its favorite tool," he replied. Ethan studied him. "You think this ends corruption?" Daniel shook his head. "No," he said. "I think it teaches people what it looks like." Ethan turned away. This time he didn't vanish. He resigned, quietly. Aftermath. There was no apology. There never is. Daniel wasn't charged. He wasn't cleared. He was released. No statements, no interviews. The most dangerous outcome of all. 1 year later, Daniel lived inland now. No sea, no ghosts. He taught conflict ethics at a small university under a name that wasn't famous. Students didn't know who he was, only what he asked them. Who benefits when the truth is called unstable? The letter a student left an envelope on his desk. No name. Inside was a single sentence, handwritten. "I saw the stream, I didn't look away." Daniel closed his eyes. That was enough. Dove final line, season 3. Systems don't fall when they're exposed. They fall when people recognize themselves inside the lie and refuse it.